All right, friends. We're going to do the same drill again. We've got Instagram Live, Facebook Live, and Zoom recording here. So this is going to be a great class today. 25 minutes. I talk a lot in this money class about today's decisions and getting your stuff together, getting your stuff squared away straight, your mind, your money, your health, all that stuff today, so that you can benefit from time. You can benefit from it down the road. I don't know if you can see this on camera today, but my face is lit up. It is bright red, painfully sore today because I had to have a procedure done yesterday because I didn't take care of my skin in my 20s while I was playing and coaching college baseball. And then after, I spent 10 years outside, not worrying about sun damage and skin and all of that stuff while I was coaching college ball. So I'm paying for it now in my 40s. So take care of your health, take care of your skin, wear sunblock, sunscreen, tops of your ears, your neck, your cheeks, your nose, and you can stay out of the dermatologist's office when you're my age. Today's class is going to be awesome. So it couldn't even, and I didn't even script it this way. Chapter 3 or lesson 3 in this money class has everything to do with money. So the US dollar, inflation, and what better way to teach you about the US dollar and inflation and recessions than teach you what the rich do over the last 50 to 60 years during times of inflation, recessions, when the US dollar is getting beat up. So, and the US dollar is getting beat up right now. So I'm going to teach you about that today. It's going to be great. I want to spend a lot of time today too sharing a presentation that I made for you. So I put together a pretty cool little presentation, slide deck format. So we're going to teach off of that today and go from there. So bear with me for a moment. Hope you guys are all having an incredible hump day. Happy hump day. All right. So when we're talking about the US dollar and inflation and the rich and what they do with it, you hear this said all the time. And I want to start off with this. It's a huge myth. And it's a myth that I think average people say. It's a myth that I think, excuse me, poor people find themselves saying. And it's, in recessions, the rich get richer. That's BS. That is true. There's some truth to that. But the reality of that is the financially literate get richer. The rich, you have to understand money. And I'm going to share stats with you today that you can give back to your dad or your mom or your grandpa or your uncle or whoever, a teacher that told you that the rich get richer, that told you that you have to inherit money to be wealthy. You have to come from money to be wealthy. All of that is poor people's advice. And I want to encourage you, and you're going to learn this through this 26-week series. Be cautious of who you take financial advice from. Be cautious of what you allow in your ears and in your eyes and in your mind, because it can limit you. It can give you those limiting beliefs, which are harmful, very, very, very harmful. Let's play a game real quick. I played this game a while back and it changed my thinking, and I got it wrong, by the way. Would you rather that I give you, youngsters, teach this to youngsters, but adults, this is even more important for you guys to understand so you can teach it to someone. Would you rather I give you $250,000 right now? I cut you a check for $250,000 cash right now. You can go and cash and use however you'd like right now. Or would you rather I give you a penny and you have to hold on to that penny for 30 days? But the thing is, with that penny, it doubles every day for 30 days. And after 30 days, I'll give you what's left over. So I want you to take a second, maybe think it through. Penny that doubles, whatever, or $250,000 cash, and you can put it in whatever investment vehicle you want. You can go buy $250,000 in crypto. You can go buy real estate, whatever you want. Okay. $250,000 cash today, or a penny that doubles, and I'll give you what's left over in 30 days after that penny doubles. Write down your answer. That one penny, that cent that doubled each day for 1 month straight, at the end of 30 days, you'll get $5.3 million. Okay, but look at this chart. Look at this graph. And this is a great segue into understanding the US dollar and inflation and the rich and money and how money works through that. And how money works in the US, okay? It takes about 25 days for that penny to literally be worth nothing other than a cent that doubles. So just dollars. And by day 25, look at that jump. Look at that jump, okay? To $1 million after day 27, to 2 million after day 28, to 3 million, 4 million, 5.3 million from day 25 to day 30. Okay, that silly little penny. Okay, so it's important that you understand how money works, how the rich get richer. That's a great segue into today's lesson. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's lesson, we got to talk about some boring stuff. One thing that I've learned from wealthy people and rich people and successful people, whether it be a pro athlete, I heard Aaron Rodgers talking about it the other day. He was in an interview. I don't even know if it was Joe Rogan or on a sports broadcast network, but he said, I live it up in the off season when I don't have my schedule being monitored down to the minute. But during the in season, the preseason, the in season, he goes, my schedule, my daily schedule is audited and tended to by himself to the minute. Okay, so he's structured routine. And so it's so important to understand that when we're talking about the US dollar, we're talking about what rich people do to get richer, wealthy people do to get wealthier. You have to understand it's boring. Successful people, I hang out with a lot of very successful real estate agents and mortgage professionals and financial planners and insurance professionals, builders, developers. What we do every single day is boring. If you would have seen, here's my spreadsheet today, these two spreadsheets today, boring phone calls that I've made all day long, almost all day long, up until about 1:30 today. Same phone calls I make every Wednesday to the same group of people every single Wednesday, but that compound action over time will look like this relative to my actions. So the idea of compound interest, the idea of compounding actions is true. It's backed by data. It's backed by work ethic. The pro athletes use it. Successful people use it. Wealthy people use it. So got to understand that as we launch into this lesson. But the US dollar, youngsters, you have to understand that you probably don't hold on to coins and dollar bills as much as we did when we were younger and our parents did when they were younger, like we used to. Nowadays, it's in a bank account and we access it via, Apple Pay or our credit cards or debit cards. But the US physical dollar is backed and controlled by the Federal Reserve. That didn't happen until about the 1960s under Nixon. The US dollar used to be backed by the gold standard, by gold, okay? So you have to understand that now, because the Federal Reserve controls the flow of money in America, in and out of America, but in America, there's some control. There's a controlled aspect to that. The dollar is impacted by economic factors such as inflation. So I was talking to a client earlier today, and they were talking about mortgage rates. And they asked me, they were like, Dan, what causes mortgage rates to go up and down? And I said, hey, let me ask you this. What do you think causes mortgage interest rates? That's what I do for a living, by the way, you guys. I'm one of the top mortgage professionals in America. And so I said, hey, what do you think causes mortgage rates to go up and down? And they said, well, the 10-year treasury. And I said, they said, and I said, what else? And they said, like mortgage-backed securities. And I said, yep. Okay. And I said, what else? And they were like, well, the Fed. And I said, yes and no, not directly, but indirectly. Yeah. But this is the correct answer. You can thank Barry Habib for this, one of the top economists that I follow. Mortgage interest rates are attached to inflation. Go back and Google it. Go back and study it. Watch inflation. As inflation numbers rise in America, mortgage rates rise. As inflation comes down, mortgage rates come down. It's that ebb and flow of the dollar backed by the Federal Reserve. Who and what controls inflation in America? It's the Fed. It's the Fed chair. It's the Fed. You've heard Mr. Powell talking a lot, and which Mr. Powell, the Fed chairman, missed the mark. They didn't go in as soon as they could have to beat down inflation this last year. They waited a little too long, and now we're in a mess. And now we're seeing the rising Fed rates through the roof. That's why we're kind of economically speaking right now in 2022, October of 2022, kind of in a mess because it wasn't managed better, more efficiently. So The US dollar is impacted by economic factors like inflation. Super timely message right now. So, youngsters listening to this, a dollar bill that your grandfather gave you back in 2020 today is worth $1.14. Okay, that's due to inflation. So what that means is the US dollar, it buys 12.3% less product today than it did back in 2020. It's key to understand that the US dollar is losing its value, buying power, if you will. It's hard to understand it losing its value. It's losing its buying power due to inflation. So the US dollar, here's some more stats on this. There's $2 trillion in circulation right now in 2021 and 22. Okay, this is the most recent number that I found. 50 billion of that currency is dollars and coins. 2 trillion, but only 50 billion of that is physical dollars and coins. So what this means is you have to understand this, youngsters, that the US of A, the greatest country in the world, the greatest company in the world, the US is a business. And like most big businesses, they are highly leveraged. They use debt. Go back to that stat, $2 trillion in circulation, 50 billion of it is currency. So they're leveraging credit and debt to make more, to grow and to make more money. That's why we're in the problem that we're in right now is the Fed printed money during COVID. They gave away free money. You got stimulus, or you might have known someone who got those stimulus checks and the PPP checks to businesses. Okay, that money was created out of thin air, but we are paying for it now. Higher inflation, higher taxes. All right, so let's move on and let's talk a little about, I want to talk about inflation now because it's important to understand. I didn't get this, you guys, even as a mortgage professional, a finance professional, I understood what it meant in a book. But having lived through this now for a few years, but over the last 15 years, gone through a couple of different economic cycles, I really, truly got to see inflation in action. I was too young in the 80s to really experience. Well, last time we had a ton, and I'll show a graph in a minute, a ton of inflation in America. I was too young. I didn't get it. My parents did. My grandparents did, but I didn't get it. The USA Today announced in August of 22 that 25% of Americans are delaying retirement due to inflation. Okay, your dollar is worth less because of high inflation. And what the Fed is doing right now, look at the stock market, investment accounts are paying out less. We're losing money in our investments. Home values right now, because of inflation, the high cost in mortgage interest rates went from 3% to 7% in the last 6 months. It's causing the housing market to cool off. So that home that our friends over here on the hill could have sold for $1 million last year is now selling for $825 to $850, for example. Okay. So 25% of Americans right now are delaying retirement due to inflation. There's this tweet that I've shared numerous times in presentations about inflation. They printed $8 trillion in 2020 to 2021. They gave you 1,400, sent the rest to their friends, and left you with inflation. That's in a nutshell, that's what happened. Okay. So let's understand the definition of inflation so that we can talk about how to beat this thing, this natural cycle. Inflation, it's a general progressive increase in prices of goods and services in an economy. When the price level rises, each unit of currency buys fewer goods and services. Consequently, underlined here, inflation corresponds to a reduction in the purchasing power of money. Okay. So if the cost of something goes up, okay, you're not able to purchase as much. A great example Bear Habib uses. Let's say you're super strict when you go to the grocery store, and every single month you buy the same stuff. And every single month in your grocery budget for your entire household month is $2,000. What you've seen lately is that shopping cart that used to have all of this product in there that $2,000 would buy every single month is now receding by about 1/4%. So you're buying 1/4% less groceries for that $2,000 that you could have bought last year. That's inflation. Okay, what is the cause of inflation? Inflation reflects the broad rise in prices or the fall in the value of money, and it generally results from too much demand chasing too few goods or limited services, leading to price increases. Okay. So the big thing that you need to understand here is that It results from too much demand, chasing too few goods or limited services, leading to price increases. So that plumber that I used to get for 75 bucks an hour now is booked out. In order to get him in an emergency situation, he's charging me $350. Okay. Limited services, too few goods. Okay. You have to understand too, that there is an actual inflation rate in America. The ideal inflation rate is about 2%. Current inflation is anywhere between 5 and 8%, depending on how you interpret this or read it. So what that does is it erodes our buying power. And lastly, I want you to understand that you have to understand the flow of money, and inflation in America is just cyclical. Okay. When you understand, this is game changing if you're listening to this as an adult or a young adult. When you understand that this is cyclical, Jim Rohn, one of my favorite mentors and personal self-development gurus in America, he passed away not too long ago, but I got to learn from him in the early 2000s as a young adult. And he said the sooner, and Tony Robbins now teaches this, the sooner that you can understand seasons in life, seasons in business, the sooner you'll be able to master your life, master business. So for example, let's talk about the 4 seasons. In Seattle up here, we have pretty serious 4 seasons. We get all 4 of them nicely. Fall, winter, spring, summer. Up here in Seattle, our winters don't get too snowy and too ugly, but they are rainy and they're cold and blustery and no fun. Okay. What I tell people all the time, whether it be business or in life or with money, you have to understand that winter is here for a season. It's not winter year round in any area that I'm aware of, other than some rare areas in the world, but we're talking about, highly populated areas. It's not winter year around. It's not summer year around. You have seasons. So the sooner that you can understand what comes before the winter is the fall. Right now, this is a great time to prepare for a storm. If you're in the storm in the winter, you have to understand what comes after winter. A little bit of rain, a little bit of sun, a little bit of better weather. That's called the spring. What comes after the spring? The summer. Okay. The sooner that you can understand that this is just inflation and recessions are just a cycle, and how money circulates through those cycles is so important. And when you learn how to take advantage of these cycles, you'll be able to start doing what the wealthy does. So I want to share this with you. Hey, Dan, cool. Thanks for teaching me about the US dollar. Thanks for teaching me about inflation. How do you beat this monster? How do you win at this cycle? Here's how you beat inflation. You have to put your money and you have to invest in things that will outperform the inflation rate. If the inflation rate's 5 to 8%, you need to have your money in investment vehicles that will generate a yield greater than that. So down here at the bottom, I'm gonna highlight this right now. This line item right here that crashes down here that I circled in red is the US dollar. This big, thick red line right here that spikes and goes up is real estate. The one right under it is the stock market, the S&P 500 index. Right under that are bonds, US bonds. Right under that is gold. Okay, so if you invested your money, you put your money in the S&P 500, and I'm not giving any financial advice right now, I'm explaining this chart. But if you put your money into real estate, that over a 30, 40-year period has an average rate of return of 9 to 10% here in the Seattle area. If you put your money in the stock market, that has over a 30, 40-year period, an average rate of return of 8 to 9%. The S&P 500 index is what I'm talking about. Same thing with bonds, around 4%, 5%. You put your money in investment vehicles that outperform what the US dollar is doing. I showed you a minute ago what a dollar bill bought you in 2020 versus what it buys you today. It's less. Put your money in these vehicles, and this is how the rich get richer. This is how the financial literate get richer, is they understand that inflation is just a cycle. They understand when to buy and when to sell during these cycles, and they understand which vehicle they need to become friends with during these cycles. Speaking of cycles, here's proof. All the way back since the 1940s, this is inflation. So in the 50s, massive inflation. Okay, and I'm not going to get into teach a history lesson. Then it leveled out into the 70s, inflation. The 80s, we saw a lot of inflation. It leveled back out for about 40 years. until we got into about the 2006 to 8, and then into the 2020s where you see it spike back up again. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to have conversations with men and women, professionals that were in real estate, in the stock market during the 80s, because I feel like we're in if you look at trends and data, we're very similar markets like we saw in the 80s. Now, this is a very, very important chart that I like to explain. I explain this to home buyers, my clients right now. So the red lines are recessions. These skinny red lines is when the economy hits a recession. These fat gray lines right here, vertical gray lines, are inflationary periods. And so right here, these are just, for example, 30-year fixed rates. But remember the inflation, remember this. So the inflation rate and mortgage rates mirror each other, right? So look what happens. We'll go all the way back to 75. Inflation, what did mortgage rates do? They spiked, and then we hit a recession right after, and mortgage rates dropped. Let's go into the 80s. Same thing. We got inflation, okay? More inflation, mortgage rates rise. We hit a recession right after, and look, mortgage rates drop. Here, another. We've got inflation, mortgage rates rise, recession, mortgage rates drop. So you see this trend. These are cyclical trends. The sooner you understand these. So when I'm giving advice to first-time home buyers or people thinking of selling, maybe moving up or moving out or moving down, I share data and information like this. It just shows them. And then I pin us right now in 2022 where we're at in this cycle. And it's almost like having a crystal ball relative to investing. The stock market has been down. It's been ugly. I'm not cashing out money that I have in the stock market right now. I'm investing more. I sent $20,000 to my financial planner on the first of the month, again, for him to invest when the time is right. It's called dollar cost averaging. It's not timing the market. Remember what I said last week? It's time in the market. All right. It's so important to understand that. All right. We're going to wrap up some inspirational, some information that is going to help you win the money game. You have to understand, kids, the sooner, even adults, if you may or may not get this, but kids, the sooner you can understand this, my kids, 16 and 14-year-olds, the sooner you can understand this, the better chances you have at winning with your money and winning in business and winning in life or whatever you're going to do. You have to understand you have three currencies. You, me, human beings, we have three currencies. The first currency is our time. We all get 24 hours in one day, okay? You don't get an hour more than I do. I don't get an hour more than you do. Elon Musk, because he's just wealthy and all that stuff, he doesn't get any more time. We all have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, okay? What we do at that time is the game changer. Some people are just way more productive with their time than others, all right? So number one, most important currency is your time. Number two, because you can't get back time. Number two is your money. You can lose money and you can make more money, you can get money back, okay? But number two is money. Number three, this is the lost one. This is the lost currency that when I learned this as a 27-year-old, my life changed. Knowledge. Number three, your third currency is your knowledge. Okay. I don't know if you can see behind me. You on Instagram can see all those books behind me. You guys right here can see these books behind me. Your knowledge, your time, your money, and your knowledge is your big three currencies. So then let's take those three big currencies and let's look at some stats from wealthy people, traits of wealthy people that schools don't teach you. And even the wealthy people aren't going to come out and tell you this. Number one, 90% of millionaires got rich by investing in real estate. 90% of millionaires got rich by buying what I get to finance, real estate. All right. So look in parentheses. That currency is number two, money. Number two, 94% of wealthy people own stocks. That's money and time, because you're not going to, unless you're day trading, you're not going to buy a stock. And these millionaires, these wealthy people don't buy and get out. They buy and hold, Warren Buffett style, right? 94% of wealthy people own stocks. They own the stocks that you'll find in the S&P 500, okay? Now let's go back. That's money and time, number one and number two, okay? Look, number three, 85% of rich people. I love this. This gives me goosebumps. 85% of rich people read self-improvement books. Okay, that currency is knowledge. Listen, as a 22, 23-year-old young man, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a college and pro coach, and I knew that I wanted to inspire people. I knew that I needed and I wanted to be successful. And I heard this from Zig Ziglar that the learned will inherit the earth. Okay. The learned, if you can learn, if you can read, if you can increase your knowledge, you'll have everything you want in life, whether that's money, whether that's success, whatever it might be. So I started investing in myself relative to knowledge as a 22, 23-year-old young man. Anybody that knew me in high school and college, Dan did not like to read. He had ADD. He couldn't focus. He couldn't read. Something clicked in me when I was a 22 and 23-year-old. And I started reading. It was because I learned number 3, 85% of rich people read self-improvement books and they apply it to their life. I wouldn't be married today. I wouldn't be the business person that I am today had I not read all of those books. And the most important one back there that you might not be able to see is the one called the Bible. Changed my life. All right. Number 4, the wealthiest 5% of Americans, get this, they save 37% or more of their money that they make each year. That's knowledge. That's budgeting. That's discipline. I want you to replay this. I want you to write this down. I want you to put this on your desk. If you're a youngster, put this in your phone or in your car. Subscribe to these 4 things. Get to, if you're not making money right now, learn how to make money. There's going to be some sections, some lessons in this course that'll teach you how to make money. Make money. Number 2, invest. Number 3, read. Invest in yourself. If you can't invest in the stock market and you can't invest in real estate right now, number 3, invest in yourself, read. So speaking of number 3, here's how you do that. Here's how you do that, youngsters. If you don't have a bunch of money to invest right now, here's 5 or 6 podcasts that I want you to start listening to, because what you put in your eyes and your ears is who you are. Let me say that again. What you put in your eyes and your ears is who you are. What you put in your eyes and ears today is who I will meet 5 years from now. Kids, my daughter, Allie, what you put in your eyes and your ears is where you're going, and I'll meet you down there 5 years from now. I don't know. I'm hoping it's this stuff. I've given you this stuff, but I'm giving this to you. Ed Mylett, Andy Frisella, Ben Newman, Jocko, Mel Robbins, Lewis House, 6 winners that if you listen to them daily, pick one of them and listen to them for a month, your life will be better. Here's 7 or 8 books that I highly recommend that changed my life. The 4 Agreements, 10X by Grant Cardone, Max Out Your Life by Ed Mylett, The Power of One More by Ed Mylett. I'm a big Ed Mylett fan, as you can see. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I taught a 52-week course on that book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is just so good for understanding how valuable a routine is and how to stick to it. So that's class for today. This is, in my opinion, in prepping for this last week, man, if I was a 16-year-old kid and could go back in time and have this taught to me at 16 and subscribe to it, I want to say I'm pretty happy with my life, but I probably would be in a completely different atmosphere, stratosphere universe had I subscribed to this stuff sooner. I hope this was valuable. If you found this valuable, share it with someone it can bless. I want to get this lesson out to more people. And I want to close with this. This is free. There's no charge for this. But I want you to understand, I want you to know this, and you can help me with this. I'm a mortgage professional. If you know of anyone who's looking for a mortgage professional that gives a little bit more, like that 10X book, 10X, what most other mortgage professionals can do, I want you to introduce them to me. I'd love an introduction. If you need help or have any questions with your mortgage, I'd love to be your mortgage guy. All right. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you next Wednesday. Reach out to me if you have any questions in the meantime. Okay. Bye for now.